Oi, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? Aye? You'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a rope? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Assassin's Creed 2. Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast. Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, where we attempt to find the best game within a really specific and odd category. For example, this week we're looking for a game that's a sort of unofficial adaptation of a film or TV series, and I can't remember for the life of me what actually inspired this, but it definitely wasn't Dune, because that's got a lot of actual official adaptations.
It's got to be Helldivers, right? And the Starship Troopers stuff.
That's the one. That's the one, Connor. Brilliant.
There we go.
Remembered.
Well done, Connor.
So glad you're around. Inspired by Helldivers 2, which is, of course, an unofficial sort of video game version of Starship Troopers. You go to planets, you fight bugs to spread democracy in the galaxy. It's also sort of weirdly a bit Warhammer. It's also like a bit Terminator. There's a lot of stuff in there. There's clearly a lot of like pop culture that is seeped into Helldivers 2. But Helldivers 2 is a really, really brilliant multiplayer PvE shooter. And everyone convinced me to play it the other day in a video that will one day go up, probably in about 4 years. Yet? No, it's not, because I've had stuff to do, Tom. Like, and then, I've had to like eat crisps and things. And then I played it, and I thought it was wonderful. And I was like, this is like the best time I've had in a multiplayer game in a long time, because people tried to get me to play Lethal Company, and I just found that baffling. And I was like, I think I'm about 25 years too old for this. But Helldivers 2 is very much my speed, and based on something I love from my youth. So, like, kudos. But yeah, so inspired by Helldivers 2's obvious unofficial wink wink heritage, Starship Troopers heritage, we're trying to think of other games that are unofficial adaptations, or can be argued to be unofficial adaptations of a film or TV series. Right, okay, so let's get into it. And I think Rebecca, you had you were quite excited about this topic when we first talked about it, right?
Yes. And then I realized that I was thinking a bit backwards, and I was like, I've got so many opinions about video game movies and about like shows and other media that take inspiration from video games, and I suddenly blanked on any video games that were inspired by movies. So I had a bit of a panic. Yeah. Okay. But it's okay. I handled it. I got over it, and I did eventually remember a very cool game that I think is good to talk about in this context, which is one of my favorite stories in games ever, although it's a game that I have quite a complicated relationship, which is Control.
How
to describe Control, because it is like, it's a Remedy game, so it's like obviously quite action heavy, but it's sort of all of the hype around Remedy that you ever see is like not about the combat or the mechanics. It's always about how weird and wonderful their stories are. And Control for me is my personal favorite Remedy game, because I love the things that it's drawing on, because it has a number of influences that it wears like very openly on its sleeve, which include the movies Inception and Annihilation, which are two of my favorite films. And so genuinely, yeah, that's pretty much why I picked it, just because I love the new weird genre, which is a term that encompasses just so many, like, not really sci-fi, not really horror, like following those tropes, but wanting to subvert them and put them together in new and different ways, and kind of not be obvious about the way that you're working with your inspirations within genre fiction. So Control is about this sort of like fantastical bureaucracy, where you go into this very brutalist government building where a lot of extremely strange and unusual items and objects are being held and contained. And it has that, obviously, like, if you're familiar with Annihilation, the Alex Garland film from 2018, or indeed the Jeff Vandermeer novels that it's based on, which are some of my favorite books. I think they're amazing. I recommend them to everyone. There's a real through line. There's even a character called Control in the Annihilation books. Okay. I don't know how much of a direct influence that was, but it's like, it's you can definitely see it's got that same like you turn up to work every day at this like very boring looking building, and it's like, oh, you hand your phone in at the front desk and all of this ordinary. You go through the regular stuff of checking in through security, and then you're in this like bizarre architecture environment where just anything could kick off at any moment. Rooms shift around, all of these extremely strange things are happening, which also obviously the Inception influence, although it's less literal on the sort of like story level, is that dreamlike logic of everything being very fluid and in flux all the time. And yeah, I think that the thing about New Weird is because of the way that it's always trying to innovate, it kind of never, it almost doesn't count as the New Weird genre if you just kind of like follow the leader and do what another piece of fiction has done before it. You can't really, you couldn't have like an Inception video game or an Annihilation video game, just a direct adaptation, because those stories are designed to be enjoyed the way that they were presented. You can't just kind of shove it into another medium and have it work.
Yeah.
And so Control is for me like the perfect kind of way of envisioning that genre in a video game setting.
That's a really good point. It reminds me of, oh my god, I'm gonna get stick for this. It reminds me of the fact that they never did a follow-up to Seinfeld except within the fiction of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I get what you mean. It's like that sort of very spiritual sequelizing, but like taking a very loose inspiration rather than feeling the need to like be point by point following on. Yeah.
And it's like, this is the only way we could have done this, because as you say, doing it straight, not something that anyone was interested in doing, or something that you could do the thing justice, but you can take those themes and do something inspired by, and that makes a lot of sense to me. All right, okay, cool.
It's quite annoying this. Rebecca often picks games that I like quite a lot. And I'm like, how can I argue against this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, actually, I can't.
Oh, that's very touching, actually, Tom.
Yeah. I'll think of something. I'll think of something.
You will think. I trust you to think of something. It wouldn't be this show if you didn't. But I do appreciate that.
When Connor's on, I think easy, right? Connor's going to pick some trash.
I'll pick something that you don't even know about.
And it's easy pickings. And then when Rebecca's on, it's like, this is going to be something that actually has thought behind it.
Wait, hey.
Very moved that you think that.
So I can't think of. I will get there by the end of this.
Yeah. I believe in you,
Tom. For now, it's a good choice. For my shame, I still haven't finished Control. Like, it's one of those games.
I tell you, I really haven't either. It's like I have that's what I mean by a weird relationship with it. I keep going back to it, and I love it. I know I love it, but it's a hard game to finish, like mechanically. And it's like the combats. Once you get into the combat, and they added a lot of ability to mess with the difficulty levels in combat to like suit your preferences as well. Like, fine, it's for me the combination of the difficulty in finding a checkpoint and the difficulty of reading the map, which is all part of the way it's got very surreal architecture, and it's like it serves the themes, but at the same time I'm like, I've got to get up and do stuff sometimes. I can't always spend 45 minutes trying to backtrack to a save point. And that for me is when I'm always like, I will sit and I'll play this game in a single 6-hour session once a year, and I will get another like 25% of the way through the story. And one day I'll finish it because I love it. But it's so hard to actually get it finished.
Yeah.
Well, Control is a special place in my heart because I'm sure like Rebecca might know this, but like it's the first and only really good SCP sci-fi game.
The SCP thing is the biggest influence. If it had been, as Tom joked, all media influences, SCP would have been the top thing that I mentioned for this. That is up there with Annihilation as an obvious inspiration.
Yeah. Do you know what SCP is, Jim? It's like secure, contain, protect. It's like a whole sci-fi. It's online based, all like fan-written sort of stories based on these supernatural items or monsters or creatures or whatever that kind of are being controlled by this behind closed doors like agency that kind of keeps them all under wrapped and contained from the general public. And Control is just like the perfect adaptation of that. So the game is mint and it's fantastic in many regards. So yeah, I'm also jealous.
Sounds interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like
check it out. It's like microfiction on a fan wiki, so you can just it's perfect to sit if you've got 5 minutes to just read like a sort of flash fic short story. Essentially, it's very good.
About like a fridge that kills people every October the 7th or something.
Yeah, the fridge is like directly in control, which was the point where I was like, is this okay? Because I know that they're all sort of Creative Commons. But, like, scary fridges are now such a thing in video games, then it's definitely because of that SCP article.
I need to check some of this stuff out. It's not weird though, is it, Connor? I mean, I know it's weird, but it's not Connor weird, is it?
I mean, it's fan written stories on the internet, so like cool things and that sort of stuff. It does vary quite a bit. There's some good stuff and there's some proper.
Yeah, there's like thousands of them at this point as well. So just go onto the site and hit the random button, and you'll read some great stuff and some very odd stuff.
I'll do that. Yeah, it sounds. I was gonna say something. Sorry.
Oh, it's peak nerd shit, but like it's good. It's good.
It sounds like the later seasons of Stargate SG-1 where they start like incorporating Area 51 and stuff. Anyway, sorry.
I've just started watching season 7 or 8, I think.
No, I can't. That's it. I take back what I said about Rebecca having good choice. Stargate is beyond. Stargate can't deal with this now. That's
one of the greatest shows ever made.
Well.
No.
It's like Star Trek, but Clinton era American exceptionalism. It's good. Right, okay. Tom, what I'm going to leave Connor till last because the audience is just going to have to wait to see if what he's picked has been some sort of thing that you would prefer to hide from your Steam library. Tom, what have you got for us? Because as you have said on both of the recordings we've done today, a little bit of Inside Baseball, we've started them and you've gone, I don't have anything, but once you get round to me, I'll think of something.
The reason for that is because I look at my schedule and like, I've got a bit of time first thing in the morning to do a bit of research, and then I'll get in the morning. Like somehow that first hour just disappears by doing like emails or whatever. And then I record. This happens, and I'm like, think of something quickly. I've got something now, so it's fine.
Have you seen? There was a tweet recently, and I just sorry to stop you, but there was a tweet recently, and I really enjoyed it. And it was on Blue Sky, where someone was saying, every day I make loads of plans to catch up with all of my backlogs and all of my work deadlines the following day. But it never works because it depends on me like magically becoming a much more organized and disciplined person overnight. I'm like, oh fuck yeah, that's true. Like I could, if I pulled my finger out, I could get so much done in one day. But it's not gonna happen, is it?
Not with you, Jim.
No way.
That was mean. Yeah. But I mean, right.
just. We've been too nice this podcast. Tom's trying to bring it down to a balanced level.
I've got a choice. I think it's actually quite good. I've got a little life story first.
Right.
That's all right. Okay. I won't. Last episode, I told this story about how I made the Boiler Man a coffee. It is a bit of a bad story. I won't do that one again. But so this is related to a boiler, though. So I was often in recent times, before I had the boiler repaired, my daughter would wake up and it'd be like 2 a.m. whatever, and it'd be freezing because the heating is not working. So I have to go downstairs at 2 a.m, barely awake, barely see. And then if you've ever tried to do, if you've got a boiler and you manually have this issue where the pressure just drops, it's got these 2 little taps under it and you have to turn them, one of them, and do the other one, and then the pressure goes up and you close them both off, right? I panic about this a little bit at 2 a.m. because I'm thinking, like, what if I do this wrong and the house explodes or whatever? That's never happened, thankfully. And I don't think, hopefully it can't, because I'm operating this boiler in the early hours often. But anyway, this happened the other night, right? Let's say it was 2 a.m. I don't actually know what the time was. So I'm going downstairs, get on my knees under the stairs where the boiler is, do these 2 little taps under. I can't see them. The meter goes up to the green. The heating clicks on. It fires. Heating's back on. Hooray! But then I heard this noise. Right? I'm like, it's 2 a.m. I already panic enough about going downstairs in the dark, and like, what if there's a man stood at the back door or whatever? Right? It's not something I like to think about. I deliberately don't look out. We've got a massive sliding door in the kitchen that looks out into the garden.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just not going to look that way. If there's a man there, if I don't see it, who cares, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I heard this noise. I grabbed some milk because my daughter's awake anyway to give her some milk because she's going to want milk soon. And I went back upstairs. I could still hear this noise, right? So I looked around the front of the house, couldn't see anything from the bedroom window. Looks like I've got a side window that looks over the drive, nothing. I went to the back of the house and I could see over to the neighbour's garden. And there was this guy there. It looked like he'd got a bin or something. It was topless. And he was just rummaging through the bin. And I'm like, what is going on? And I'm looking down at him and he's like quite oblivious to, I don't know if he even knew the time or whatever. And he's just rummaging through it. And then he just looked up and we definitely like locked eyes for a minute. And it's been like, I don't know, 2 weeks since this happened. And we've not spoken about it at all.
Yeah.
And it's just it was a bit odd. I don't know what was going on there at all. But anyway, so the choice, I have no idea, but it was just, I don't want to hear that kind of level of like creepy noise in the middle of the night, really.
It's not creepy though, is it? Here's what
quite disturbing.
I work quite hard to bring true anecdotes about my life to this podcast, and you're just making it up as you go along. It's not fair. Really.
It was true. That was the true thing.
If you are that neighbour, right, in this anecdote, right, I'd like to point out that it was bin day yesterday, and I was walking into our house from the shops, and I saw like 48 empty bottles of beer in his recycling. So, you know, maybe you should be worried about your own bins, Tom.
Yeah, I do worry about them. So the game that is a picking a game, not a film, right? So I thought about this for a while this morning. I was struggling to think of something. I thought there must be like what is like something like Halo must be like based loosely off some kind of sci-fi alien-y type thing. I couldn't think of the exact film.
Yeah,
it was like most like.
Space Above and Beyond or something
like and then I thought the obvious one is Resident Evil, right? Resident Evil is like the classic zombie, like it's not called like Living Dead or anything, but it's clearly massively inspired by that, right? I thought that's a bit too obvious, and I thought, right, what is like so clever that no one's going to get? And then I thought, I did a quick Google to check that the timings line up, right?
Yeah.
So, because I couldn't pick this if it came out if the film came out after the game, but it works. So, in 2001, a film came out, according to Wikipedia, in September 2001, and it's a British film. Stars, among other people, big names such as Bradley Walsh, who's now on Gladiators in the UK, if you're watching that, and also Ricky Tomlinson of is it the Royal Family? Was he in Ricky Tomlinson? Yeah, and this film is called Mike Bassett, England Manager.
I know this film.
So it's a I don't love it, whatever. But the following year, and this is what surprised me most, is that 2002, a game came out called Football Manager. Right? And it really does resemble what happens in this film quite closely. Like, and they've never said it is a direct, like, base. They haven't based it on this film. But you can't look at it and go, right, it didn't have some influence, right? I mean, it's almost called the same. You do the same things. You go on in it to manage England if you get that far. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like they've just... They probably should come out and just say it, because it's been 20 plus years now since that was released. They've never acknowledged it. But I think it's just a classic example of something that's just taken huge inspiration from a film and then just run with it as a video game.
Right, okay.
We can't let Tom get away with this, surely. We
I
can't.
don't know. This has made me weirdly happy. Like I
Like, it's a
love
good
that film.
Like, it's a good pick, but the context of the podcast, if he wins,
What
it's
are you
going to kick
saying?
off an entire year with Football Manager.
He's not going to win. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Right. Thanks for that, Tom. Thanks for that lovely contribution.
But like football management games, like how many football management films are there apart from the great one you just mentioned? Like there's
a few like based around managing kids teams, right?
Yeah,
they always come up
for
now and
sure.
again.
Like a wholesome, like bonding with kids and making them believe in themselves and that sort of thing. Yeah,
I watched a rom-com recently. I think I can't remember if it was Netflix or Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
one of the new ones around Valentine's Day, and it was part of that was the guy in it runs like a kids football team. Yeah. It's just part of films, right? It shows you. It's like if you want a character to be good, they have a side thing of volunteering as a coach for a kids team,
for a sports team. Yeah, or it could be like Ted Lasso, although that's pretty wank, right? So
I
quite liked it for a while, actually. Ted Lasso.
Oh yeah.
Even though I haven't watched the last season because everyone said it's rubbish.
It's the last.
But I quite liked it for what it was.
It was always a bit
like highbrow entertainment or anything. But...
It was always a bit Lib Dem, but like the first series had a bit of conflict in it because like Hannah Waddingham's character was sort of had hired him under false pretenses and but then like by the end of the first season that's all resolved and they're all fucking mates and everyone's and then they kind of engineer this conflict with someone else, and then by the third series that's what that's all about, and it's like but that feels really unnatural and really kind of crowbarred in because it feels like they wrote themselves into a corner where they're like, wait a minute, there's no fucking conflict in this TV show, we need to engineer one really like drastically. So anyway, why are we talking about that? Sorry, Ted Lasso was all right for a while, but I think it was a lockdown delusion where everyone got into it and it was quite wholesome.
That's how I felt about it. It's like this. Yeah. Surely we're just have a drought of quality. Like what's going on? Also, what does Lib Dem mean as a descriptor of quality?
Fucking, it's just like an immutable quality of things that fucking like normies and Lib Dems like, isn't it? It's like fucking Coldplay. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, right, okay. So, Connor, what is your pick?
I have a real dilemma because I hate my pick now.
Yeah,
I really don't like it.
You got to go with it. You got to go with it now.
I mean,
well, this is a thing I was thinking about.
I really want to know now.
My original pick was bad, and so in the morning I messaged Jim and I was like, I want to do Max Payne and like classic John Woo films, so like Hard Boiled, because I think diving around and shooting people with shotguns and stuff is fantastic, and slow mo is
that's a bad
great.
pick at all.
Yeah, but then like I remembered you like space games so much, so I was like, we could do like Event Horizon and Dead Space. I think that's a pretty good pick. I like that quite a lot.
Yeah, I would.
But also, I've been speaking recently to. We've got a little news group in the Slack, and we were speaking about True Detective, which is a pretty.
Oh yeah.
Which is a pretty, all in all, pretty good, pretty great TV series of various detectives, police, uncovering hard truths and horrifying mysteries in their specific like place and like time setting. And I was like, I really like, even though the quality of the films kind of the TV show series kind of varies, and people have season 1, people have season 3, I really like how unique the characters are to each series. Like you've got Rust Cole in season 1, you've got the other characters in the other seasons I don't like as much. But like I wanted to try and find a game that captured that, and I was sitting here listening to Tom, well, half listening to Tom, and I thought Disco Elysium is perhaps the best cop game ever made in terms of cop duos. We don't really get a lot of detective and cop duos apart like Sam and Max.
Sam and Max, yeah. Sam and Max is the classic, right? It's a bit different to True Detective,
Sam and Max,
to be fair.
Sam and Max that don't they like try and find out who stole the Statue of Liberty rather than who's been killing a bunch of kids in Louisiana. So it didn't quite fit. Although if Sam and Max does make a return, I mean, sure.
I didn't
Go
play
for
the new ones. Maybe they do go
Maybe they do go that.
those places, but
I
it's
think
unlikely.
in the modern environment, maybe that as like people would really dig that. But either way, Disco Elysium's fantastic. Largely down to your ability to customize your character as like however you like, thanks to the fort system. So if you want to be quite on the straight and narrow, there are like perception, like kind of regular stats. So I actually want to solve this case. If you want to get plastered and smoke cigarettes and do drugs and speak to trash cans and put in letterboxes, you can. And you can totally go down that route. And the game has such a amazing sort of narrative. It's such a work of prose that it kind of respects your choices and kind of presents the world in a distinct way, depending on how you decide to go about your cop life. You can be a fascist, and it kind of sucks to be a fascist, as you imagine it would. But also, it makes some parts of your life easier, which I suppose is one of the only gameplay benefits of that. You can also sleep on benches, and you can steal things from people, and it's all respected. And I think in trying to get across what True Detective's about, which is being just like wrecks of people, just horrible, sort of like either really lonely or really sad or like self-destructive, like detectives trying to figure stuff out. It's probably the only game that kind of nails that. Also, you can dance in a church, and it's pretty lovely.
Have you played Detective Pikachu?
I have not, but I don't believe Detective Pikachu can become a wino. If he
He's
can.
really into coffee.
He is really into coffee.
He's got a fairly problematic relationship with coffee, which is for a Nintendo game. You know,
Mate, that's kind of. I've never played Detective Pikachu, but you know that you're selling me on it.
it's good. I'm still playing the first one. I'm enjoying it.
He's like, I wouldn't play a Pokemon game unless one of the wee guys had a vice.
That's like a serious problem he has to overcome. Yeah.
So that is really interesting because when you first said Disco Elysium True Detective, I thought, well, I mean, look, that's just a couple of detectives, and that I was ready to be like, you fucked this, Connor,
right?
But then you talked very specifically about them being broken characters, broken people, essentially, and how them being the way they are interacts with the world that they are in, the wasteland of kind of humanity that they find themselves investigating a murder in, and that really works as a comparison, as a parallel. So actually, you really won me around with the content of your pitch, which doesn't often happen, because I've got to be honest. Usually, I make a snap judgment within 3 seconds with most people.
Well, I'm glad. I'm really happy.
I have to say, you've done really well there. So I need to pick something now. Which right. So we've got 2 really good picks and Football Manager. Once again. Football Manager.
I don't understand why has that been put on its own?
Because Football Manager has nothing to do with the film that you brought up whatsoever.
Why not? Where's the evidence to say that the others are actually directly to do with the other films that we've talked about?
Firstly, the concept of managing football is in and of itself like the thing that both of those things you mentioned
Jim,
are
just
based
tell
on.
me for a fact, do you know that the hundreds of people at Sports Interactive that make Football Manager did not watch Mike Bassett England Manager?
They almost certainly, I would even hazard a guess that most of them did at some point.
So how can it not
most of them are in
have influenced their game the following year?
In what ways does that manifest?
In the fact that you manage football clubs and then go on to manage England.
Yeah, but you did that. But you did that in versions of the very series you're talking about.
It didn't have this
existed before that film, right?
Yeah,
because that film came out in like the early 2000s or something, and Champman's been a
How
thing
long have
since
Detectives been around for? I mean, Gee, this is like we're allowed to just assume that
we're talking about
Connor's fine because they've
time.
never had a TV or film about hard-nosed broken detectives before. That's never happened, has it? Oh,
No,
but then the True Detective comes along.
It's
This must be
specifically
True Detective.
about the interplay between these detectives being all messy and kind of in a state, and also like the slight supernatural tinge there, and how
Bad Lieutenant, right? Bad Lieutenant's about a completely messed up.
There's an achievement in Disco Elysium called True Detective.
Yeah, that's just two
See
words.
that? I think that counts.
Just 2 words.
Like,
Well,
as a
just
reference.
2 words.
That's really good.
To be fair.
You know what? There's the game that I picked is called Football Manager, which is the name, basically the name of the film.
That
There's
doesn't count, Tom.
That's the name of the
so
job.
much that's very specific from Mike Bassett, England manager, that you could legitimately have as like an Easter egg in a Football Manager game. I haven't played Football Manager, so can you tell me, like, is there a misquote of a Rudyard Kipling poem? Because that would be really solid evidence that Mike Bassett, England manager, was
in the press
was an
conferences. That definitely happens. And
genuinely, if that was true, I would love it.
I don't know, but also there is a manager in it called Mike.
I do love it.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not a common name, to be fair. Biblical. I love when Rebecca's on the podcast, because Tom when you are faced with an opponent who actually knows stuff and reads things, which let's be honest, most people who work on this website don't.
Disclaimer: everyone who works at our news website does know and read things.
Yeah.
Please keep reading.
This is
our
website. A lot
Please.
of pressure coming down on me, flattering though it is.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to do this to you, Rebecca, but not to the extent that Rebecca does, right? Like we're all like none of us are thick, but like, you know, like most of us are, like, you know, comparatively
intelligent writers and reporters. Yeah.
No, I'm not having that. But I'm just saying, when Tom, because Tom can kind of usually sort of bullshit and just be a bit mean in order to sort of brute force his way through this podcast. But when like somebody who knows things is like, yeah, but can you give me an example of, like, you like Emily Maitlis him there? Can you give me an actual example of this happening in Football Manager? Crumbled into dust.
I'm going to Google it right now. I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah, please find us a Rudyard Kipling reference in Football Manager, because that would make me so happy.
If he does, then he's just won. Surely that's just it.
Right. I mean, to be honest, we'd both have to concede at that point, Connor, because that would just be too good.
He's gonna
Jim, I know things. I'm smart.
Like the surname.
I'm just a useless trivia sponge. Don't
not like people say. I'm smart.
It'll turn out that the name fucking Mowgli is in the in the database for names or something. It'll be some.
Who even is Mike Bassett?
It's just a character. It's made up for the film.
So it's not like Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six.
No. It's just like it's a comedy character.
Tom Clancy's Football Manager.
Tom Clancy's Football Manager.
That'd be quite a crossover, wouldn't it?
That'd be sick.
Just bullets flying everywhere. So Tom's absolutely fuming. But you know, I think.
Right, I found something.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's not necessarily the smoking gun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
But there is a mod for Football Manager. That adds Mike Bassett and his assistant Dave Dodds to the database, so you can.
That is extremely charming.
They're in the game.
That is nice.
We're not in the game.
And Jim has previously and Jim has, as a president, allowed mods before. With
I'm not allowing it.
You have done it before. You have done it before.
No. I've allowed mods in terms of, like, if a mod is like a published work, you can submit a total conversion mod. For example,
all mods are published works.
Shut up, Connor. Right?
No, you need to adapt. You have to change the canon now. Mods are acceptable unless.
In this specific situation, it's not people. The Football Manager people haven't made this mod, have they? It's some guy in a fucking in a grotty little house making
That's
Mike Bassett.
That's a bit mean.
We're all just some guy or some girl or some person somewhere, aren't we, Jim?
I want Tom to lose because his choice was bad. I don't want Tom to lose because
his choice was bad. That's what I'm saying.
Hypocrite.
It's a terrible choice.
precedent being set.
It's a terrible choice. It doesn't make any remotely any sense in terms.
We've talked about it for a long
timelines.
time, though, haven't we? Which
Yeah,
is all
we
I
have.
wanted.
Yeah, this is,
Yes,
in a
this is
way,
good.
you've won. Right. Okay. So look, I really like Control taking on the themes of Annihilation and let me bring up your thing for the other thing you said. Sorry.
It's okay. It was Inception.
Inception. Sorry. Annihilation mainly, though, right?
Yeah, mainly Annihilation.
Yeah.
Bit of Inception in there too.
You can tell how much Jim likes a pitch by if he has to get a reminder of what the inspiration was.
but in the same way as yours, Connor, there was like there was an actual sort of like, here is evidence of a hard link between the two things, or an intended link. It's clearly like there's an intended inspiration here. Somebody has clearly looked at one thing and gone, I think we can do the video game version of that. And I think
that is why Disco Elysium is so special, is because if you like any sort of cop fiction, be it True Detective or Columbo, there is a direct link to that thing in terms of the character you can make and the plot of the game. So that's kind of why I changed my ideas to that one.
And I do think that what you said was really interesting about like I say, initially I was very, very skeptical, but then this idea that it's essentially about, it's about broken people sifting through the debris of a broken society, and that works. Literally, the fucking the TV show is referenced very directly by the game in the achievements list, etc. So I feel like it's very unlikely and actually impossible that the people behind that game weren't very aware of True Detective and probably were influenced on some level by it. True Detective as well, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's an anthology show that's a victim of its own success, because the first season is so good that the follow-up season everyone just immediately hated because it wasn't anything like the first season.
Right?
Yeah, we were literally talking about
I literally say this to you like yesterday, Connor. I was if the season order had been 2, 1, 3, 4, people would have been like, it is solid across the board.
Yeah.
But season 2 so suffered from being the follow-up to season 1.
Yeah. And season 2 is still good, right? It's just
it is, right? But it's not season 1 though. They pivoted away from some of the key themes. And it was still a good detective show, but people were kind of like, well, where's the Lovecraftian horror undertone?
Yeah.
You know, and like, fair enough, that did really make the first season stand out, and you do feel its absence. But season 2 is still like a really good, gritty detective drama with lots of, personal drama and the big high stakes conspiracy and all that. It's still all there. If it had come first, people would have been like, this was a great show, and then season 2.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
Ironically, season 4 is kind of slightly worse, in my opinion, because it tries to tie too much to that first season. Season 2 is kind of...
I really need to watch season 4.
Season 2 is kind of its own beast. Season 3 as well, to a degree. Although it has like one reference, I think.
Yeah.
But
isn't season 3 just overall like a jumping quality? I think I'm sure season 3
is fantastic.
Season 3 is really good.
Yeah. But season 4, the chief complaint I've heard about season 4 is that it's this weird sort of like trying to have its cake and eat it too, and when it comes to being a follow-up versus an anthology, but then it does get kudos for being very much its own thing in terms of the setting, in terms of very female-led and everything. So but
the next time we do a video, Jim, in the real world, we should do it based on True Detective. We should get in your new car and film like a detective thing. If you like that idea, please make a million comments telling us that idea is not awful.
All right, I need to actually pick one though. See, this is what
I thought you'd done. I thought you'd pick.
You had laid up on me win because you had done the Rebecca's is really good.
Yeah.
And then, but I actually would like Connor. But
have I actually teed up a Connor win? Have I?
Traditionally, you have, but I like their pick so much that I actually, do what you want.
Honestly, same. Like, I would like to shake hands, but we can't. I kind of like the fiction that we all live on the same street, and Tom can see you going through your bins at night.
Stuff, yeah.
I like that as the
Wonder if there's
VG247
this-
like fictional universe where we all live on this quaint little street. And...
Yeah.
I love the idea. I would love if your neighbour listened to this podcast, Connor, and was like,
Oh God.
I think that's my neighbour. I think that's Moira. That's him that I saw in the bins the other night. I think.
That would mess with your head. Like, the world is not so big that people don't occasionally recognise themselves from podcast anecdotes. I've known it to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was at EGX and no one recognised me. And that's kind of our...
Were you shirtless and carrying a bin? Because I feel like that's going to be your,
You'd definitely be recognised then. People would be like, hey, it's the bin guy.
That's him.
At EGX, I think people just thought I brought one of my sons to fucking work. Right, okay. I'm gonna pick. Sorry, Rebecca. I'm gonna pick Connor.
All right, absolutely well deserved. You convinced me as well, Connor. So
I think both
fair
pictures
enough.
were great, but I think Connor's. I found that really appealing, and particularly because I wasn't on board with it at first, and you actually brought me around, which I like. Have a lot of respect for that. So, okay, Disco Elysium. I forgot the name of the fucking game. Then, Disco Elysium is the best game that is an unofficial adaptation of a movie or TV show. Albeit, probably you could make an argument that it's an adaptation of a lot of things, up to and including Columbo, as you said. So, sorry, Tom, but the resurrecting the football manager bit's just not working out, is it?
It's going all right, actually.
All right. Now we need to go to the new section of the podcast where people find out what I would have picked for this, and I have got precisely like 40 seconds to think of one, actually, because I haven't thought of one for this one. Fuck it, let's go for it. Okay. Right. Now, I'm going to get stick for this because it's people are going to be like, "Well, you just pick something you know quite well, and whatever."
Star Trek, Doctor Who.
Oh, fuck's sake! Fuck's sake! No, Tom, not
Oblivion.
quite. Right, I'm going to go with
The Roman
Babylon
Empire.
5 and Mass Effect 1. Right.
What?
It's right. Okay. So listen, right. So Babylon 5 is a wonderful TV show from the early.
That's doing a lot of work. That, saying wonderful in front of Babylon 5 is like
fucking brilliant.
It's like saying
incredible.
my wonderful Greg's cheese sandwich. It's like, is it?
Oh god, I'd kill for a Greg's cheese sandwich right now.
Sorry.
Right. So a lot of people, when they talk about Mass Effect, being Mass Effect wears its sci-fi influences quite on its sleeve, right? You can talk about Mass Effect in terms of like, well, obviously it's what BioWare came up with to replace the Star Wars license, which they were no longer going to use for their sci-fi strand, in the same way that Dragon Age is not Dungeons and Dragons. You could argue that Mass Effect is very heavily influenced by Battlestar Galactica. There are definitely elements of that in there. There's even like the Quarian fleet idea, which is essentially Battlestar Galactica being played out in microcosm as part of this wider universe. There is there's all the obvious sort of thing where you are a captain who shoots from the hip and going down to these places, and it plays out slightly episodically, but you're essentially Captain Kirk. And so you could talk about a lot of things, but the thing that I think is often underplayed, perhaps because Babylon 5 just isn't as big and popular as those other things that Mass Effect clearly draws from, is Babylon 5. Babylon 5 is this... there's a lot of parallels. In the Babylon 5 universe, humans are a fairly young spacefaring race who have entered into this sort of interstellar society. And long story short, some bad stuff happens, and eventually they set up a station in neutral territory, which is effectively the United Nations, but on a galactic scale, right? And all the big kind of superpowers of the galaxy have representatives there, and it's where people hash out sort of, like trade deals, agreements, organize humanitarian aid, and have debates about trying to solve wider conflicts within the galaxy. Like there's a real clear parallel between with the Israel-Palestine situation when it comes to two of the superpowers. I'm not going to go too much into that, but like there's a lot of stuff in there about basically this is the United Nations, but we're playing it out on a galactic scale, and because it's good science fiction, and all good science fiction does this, it's contemporary issues presented through the lens of people in latex masks, right? Okay, so but Mass Effect is a lot like that. Like you've got the Citadel, which is clearly like on some level this is that universe's Babylon 5. You've got this council of the big powerful races. You've got a lot of sort of parallel elements. Again, humans are the younger, sort of more outspoken, slightly fascistic race that are upcoming, and they're looking to make a name for themselves on a galactic stage. And actually, the older, wiser races don't really want to give humanity too much of a leash, because they see them as brash and dangerous, and frankly, getting a bit fucking ahead of themselves. All that stuff is there, and I think it's again one of these. I think it's an element of Mass Effect that is often overlooked, but I think it's more influenced by Babylon 5 than it is by any of the other stuff.
No.
I mean,
not
like, it's frustrating because, like, the season of Babylon 5 is about, like, xenophobic humans, right? It's about people not liking aliens to a degree. And in Mass Effect 1...
The first season's not quite about that, but...
Is there not? Okay.
That's a thread that goes through the whole thing.
That's a thread.
But, yeah.
Well, in Mass Effect 1, there's the whole Ashley not liking aliens thing, and there's the United Nations being the Citadel, and I think it's kind of just like a space parable of the whole post 9/11 America thing, ain't it? Rather than
Con, I mean,
else.
you went for detectives, so I mean,
it works. It works, but like,
yeah.
But Babylon 5 is so bad, though.
That's my main issue. Is that this could be the best argument of all time, but I'm stuck on the fact that it's Babylon 5. I'm surprised you didn't go like, if you're going to go that level, like, why not go Farscape with something like something proper terrible, like, I don't know, that one that everyone loves, that like Stargate Atlantis, terrible.
Stargate Atlantis is fucking great.
Awful show.
Oh my gosh.
No, I've also just started Stargate Atlantis, so I'm very invested in this.
It's like Connor going, Disco Elysium's based off like NCIS or something. It's like,
no, it's not.
It kind of is.
It's not. It's not at all. Babylon 5 is an incredible TV show that was so far ahead of its time.
It's so far ahead of its time is what people say about shows that were wank and only get an audience later.
That's not true at all.
It
was the problem. The Babylon 5's issue is that the what it was going for and the type of TV show it was basically hadn't quite been invented, because the circumstances of the technology didn't exist, right? You know, when Babylon 5 came out, they were like doing like fucking multi-fleet space battles and huge sort of like, you know, they were doing like digital sets, and they were doing like multiple locations per episode in the equivalent Star Trek of the time, which is Next Gen for most of its run. You know, Next Gen was like, you would have like, and I love Next Gen, but all the space stuff, for example, was just like fucking two ships just facing each other like that.
Yeah, because Star Trek knew that the thing that mattered was how good like the characters were and the interactions between the crew you like.
Granted, no, 100%.
And Babylon's 5 had an amazing setting and set and all that, but it was wank.
It was no. But the problem with Babylon 5 was able to depict an intercept. But Babylon 5's chief influence, I have to say as well, is basically sci-fi Lord of the Rings. Like
Right.
it's like almost exactly the same story, but just played out on a galactic level. Like, you know, you've got a race that is like analogous to dwarves. You've got a race that's analogous to elves. You've got humans, obviously. You've got the planet of Zahadum, which is like clearly just like directly fucking pilfered from Lord of the Rings. All that stuff about like an ancient evil rising in the east and all that.
It's the shadows, ain't it? In Babylon 5.
Yeah. You see, I feel like Connor knows
surprised
a
you
bit
didn't go
more
Wing
about
Commander,
this
Jim. Why did you pick Wing Commander?
That's why I've been able to speak about it, because I've watched Babylon's 5 and it's bad.
It's not bad. It's fucking great. It is incredible.
I like bad.
It's
People already
a
know this.
5-year televised novel.
People already know this, but
man.
I have a taste for some awful media. I really like bad stuff sometimes. Occasionally I'm in the mood for just awful television movies, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was in the mood for some bad TV and I watched Babylon's 5.
Which I'm fucking floored by that. You cannot sincerely watch Babylon 5 and think that it's a bad television show. It's so beautifully written. How much of it did you actually watch?
2 seasons?
2 seasons. Oh, so you did actually get to the good bit then. All right, okay. Fair enough.
Just really, the thing is, Jim, I so respect your opinion in these matters, and like,
right.
I think that like this is the whole thing of Babylon 5 being like a major influence on Mass Effect. I totally trust you on that.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
The defense you're mounting of Babylon 5 just reminds me so much of when I talk about Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness, and like you're trying really hard to defend something because you love it and like it's so well written,
good.
but it was like, it's objectively like on a technical level it just was not ready. And yet you're like, but no, you have to push through that. And like, sorry, I really like resonating with this right now.
No, you're right. Like you're right. There is a lot of influence between Mass Effect and Babylon's 5. There is,
which is the point of the topic. Like,
because the start
the
of the
topic
podcast
has
is
been
best games, so it has to be good.
Mass
yeah, but Mass Effect,
Mass
the
Effect
game being submitted is Mass Effect. So
but the TV show is bad.
This isn't.
It was never about whether the TV show or film was good, though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I'm like
Babylon
Team
5's
Jim
not
on
on
this,
trial
but
here.
also because I see a fellow soul trying to like defend to the hilt something that's like, as you say, ahead of its time is like a really good euphemism.
Yeah, but it's
and
not
one
the
that I
spirit.
use a lot for Angel of Darkness.
But like the spirit of the podcast, most topics we have don't have this format where there are 2 elements of best coming in, right?
Yeah.
And everyone else on this podcast today brought in good media and good game.
Yeah.
Like you brought in Annihilation and you brought in the game you brought up. I'm sorry,
Control.
I can't remember because I won and it's all gone from my brain now.
Yeah.
And I brought in True Detective and
Tears in the Rain.
Connor basically is Connor's struggling because it's too much for him to process, right? So
yes, my brain's failing, but Tom
Jim,
can help.
what's I'm with Jim really, and the influence doesn't have to be good because it isn't in this instance. What's that thing that you love, Jim? It's like puppets, sci-fi, and it's like space cops. It's like space cops.
I don't fucking like Space Precinct. This
Space
comes
Precinct,
up
right?
constantly.
Space Precinct.
I'm
changing. Look,
listen. As well.
Listen.
I fucking love Space Precinct. I've never fucking seen. I don't like Space Precinct.
Space Precinct, your favourite show. I'm changing my pick. Disco Elysium is heavily influenced by Space Precinct. Yeah? I win now.
No, you don't win. You don't win it at all.
What is Space Precinct?
If you want to watch a really bad show, Connor,
yeah,
I do.
Right,
I do.
the way you talk about Babylon 5 applies to fucking Space Precinct, right?
It applies to everything you like.
For fuck's sake. Right, I'm not having this, right? Like, Babylon 5 is once again a modern classic, and I'm not.
It wasn't
not
even
having
a classic when it came out. It's not a modern classic.
It was right. No, without Babylon 5, there is no fucking Battlestar Galactica, right?
Oh, good.
That would be a benefit to the world.
Good, yeah, that's great.
It just doesn't exist. Without Babylon 5, there's like it essentially invented the fucking serialized cable genre show, right? Before Babylon 5, it doesn't fucking exist because it's basically impossible, right? You can't do it unless it's fucking Star Trek and you've got all the model shots are just two big fucking things looking at each other for the entire episode, right? Babylon 5 changed all that by having the ships move. And the ships move in Mass Effect.
Amazing.
Right? Anyway,
Yeah.
look, let's not get too bogged down in that, albeit we have been bogged down in it for about 15 minutes. Disco Elysium is the best game that's an unofficial adaptation of a movie or TV series. I'm sure everyone's going to kick off in the comments about how I'm wrong about that. But, please do. If you have a suggestion that you think would have worked better, if you think that I should have won, please say so. Because I don't get, nobody ever says that about me. Everyone's always like, Tom was robbed, when Tom basically wasn't robbed. I get that that's a joke.
It's because you got to push for it, Jim.
You have to fight.
You got to make it a thing that people go, yeah, I do agree with that. He's got a good point. He was robbed. You've got to just say it, and then people just go,
You've got such a weird fan club. It's incredible. Although, one of the funniest things, I'm sorry to bring this up, Tom, but one of the funniest things that happened in the comment section recently was a guy who had clearly not listened to the podcast before at all, and did not understand the ways. But, and this happens every now and again, we get a comment where people were like, I wanted to hear about X and Y as per the description, and this is a you talked a lot actually, and I wasn't prepared for that. But we had a brilliant one of those, which was like this. It was 2 comments, and it was like 9 paragraphs of a guy just going mental about Tom having the audacity to tell a workplace anecdote. And the guy was really upset. He was like, what was it he said? Somebody clearly hadn't briefed the chump in the bottom right, whose name is Tom, I gather. And it was...
I replied to him nicely.
You replied to him, and he never got back. I thought you replied.
I replied to him. I told him a little story about the pastries.
Well,
I thought you were really polite.
If he is still listening, thanks, and hang around. You'll learn to love Tom's little stories.
Yeah, and we don't hold any if you have kicked off at us in the comments before, we don't hold any grudges.
No, please don't go. Please stay.
Yeah, we're okay with that because me and Tom have made a career out of sort of mildly annoying people. So anyway, all right. Well, thank you very much for that. Please, as I say, leave us a 5-star review in your podcast platform of choice. I mean, or just leave us a fucking shit one if you want. It's up to you, not your mum.
Don't do it out of a joke, though. Yeah. If you believe it, fair enough. Right? I can't tell you what to think, but don't do it as a joke, because that just hurts our overall rating. It doesn't benefit anyone. You might think it's funny.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually help.
Yeah.
But if you really hate it, I mean...
if you really hate it, then just try and go for a walk instead. But yeah, so please tell us in the comments what you thought of the choices, and be nice. Please be nice. Be nice to Tom. Be nice to Connor. Be nice to Rebecca. I don't mind if you're nice to me or not. And I'm going to go now because everyone's got stuff to do.
Be nice to Jim. We should say, Jim.
Be nice to Jim. Yeah.
A professional host would say this. Is that this segment, right, Jim?
Yeah.
Is an extra. It's an extra segment, isn't it, Jim? That in the future, at some point, which for many reasons hasn't happened yet, will unfortunately for some of you be locked behind a paywall.
Yeah.
Right. So this extra bit after the jingle where Jim starts talking about a game, that's going to be for subscribers, members only. Right. Yeah. That's going to cost $2.99 a month, which is part of a bigger subscription membership plan that gets you like no ads on VG247.com. I think that's probably it for benefits, but the main benefit is that you get to have this extra bit of the podcast, which hopefully is worth $2.99 a month, or I think £30 a year, which does work out slightly cheaper, right? That's not bad. Like that's like, I don't know, less. I don't know, like half a large coffee.
I was told.
Is it?
Recently,
I don't know.
I was told recently by one of the Tom fans that they would only consider it if it meant if the extended section was based around Tom. And I would point out to everyone that the extended portion of this does, in fact, mean that you'll get more Tom.
Yeah, we
So-
give
But
them
not
free
all the
reign,
time.
yeah.
'Cause sometimes I just can't be bothered.
Yeah, but you will get access to more Tom than usual because he will be on it every now and then.
Mm.
We can't guarantee it like on every episode because he's got meetings and children and all sorts going on. But it is by definition it's a podcast that Tom is on. So if you get the extended version, you will get more Tom on it.
Yeah,
So anyway,
it's true.
all right. Worst salespeople of all time. All right, thanks very much for that, everyone. We will see you next week with a new topic that we have not thought of yet. Bye.
Bye bye.